mentioned in class, when we talk about these, I'm just going to kind of walk through this paper a little bit so you can take some notes on it. But when you look at this, an APA paper, it is super, oh, sorry. Hi, Nicole. Kayla, nice to meet you. So these are your all four of you. Are you guys all writing fellows for this course, or some of you for other courses?
We have one more of the sign here.
Yeah, but we're all for the APA.
Okay. But are you guys doing the nursing course?
Yeah.
Like actually the writing fellows for the nursing class?
Yeah, us plus.
You're not. Okay. I was gonna say I knew we had 4 people, and then I invited whoever wanted to come as far as just kind of to look at the APA. So when you look at any sort of formatting like this, it's super specific. And so if you see something capitalized, it should be capitalized. If you see something lowercase, it should be lowercase. So when we look at this first page, you do want 1-inch margins. It's probably, I'm not sure that they don't look like they printed off as 1-inch margins, but you do want to make sure that you have 1-inch margins, okay? And those directions are specific to
this page?
Yes. So if you look at your paper directions, it does say in there that you want 1-inch margins. So specific to that paper that you guys are writing. Then you do want to have your page number for the top. It does start on this first page. Some of this can be a pain. So what I can do is, if I can get it in a format, I'll save it in an earlier version, and maybe that will help. But I can help put a template up there that has at least the page number. It'll say running head, title. At least that will get you guys started, because that's a hard thing to do sometimes. You have to go in and change a lot of settings and stuff on the computer. So I actually have one that I keep, and I just start with that same paper over and over again, like a template that I cut myself. So where it says running head here, the R is capitalized, the head is not. Okay? And then it does have the colon, and then the title is all in caps there. So that's what I mean by it. It is super specific. The only things that should be on this front page is the title of the paper, your name, and the college. That's it. Okay. Hello. So that's it for the first page. Should look that clean. There's no decorative stuff on there, nothing else. Next page is our abstract page. Again, for this paper, you can omit this, but in APA, it will generally have an abstract. Okay? And it just kind of tells you what you should have on there. It's kind of block formation. Okay. It says abstract. When you get to the next one, you see how, so this, for your guys' actual paper, this will be the first place. It doesn't say running head, it just has that title, all in caps. So it's still there, but no longer, running head's just on that first page, okay? You have your title, so a full title goes here. Your running head does have some limitations to how long it's allowed to be, but for your title, it doesn't necessarily have limitations, unless your actual paper says that you have limitations. Like my dissertation, we're only allowed to have like 18 words or something in our title. So your title is centered. It is not bold or anything. Okay, it's just plain. Then you use paragraph formation. So you have just your indent, the beginning of your paragraph, and everything is double spaced. Everything. Everything in APA is double spaced. So the title page was double spaced where you had your name. Everything throughout the paper is going to be double spaced. So you have to make sure your settings are that way. One setting that I see that students often forget is the extra space between paragraphs. So you'll get this extra, it should just be double spaced, but I'll see extra space at the end of a paragraph before you start like another level heading or something. It'll give us this extra, like it's almost like a half space. And so unless you're somebody that is used to looking at these APA papers all the time, you don't necessarily catch it. And Microsoft Office just automatically does it. So you have to go in and uncheck that box, okay? Because you do not want the extra spaces in there. You'll lose a point. It drives us all batty because because it's not supposed to be there. What I put on this paper let me finish going through the format. Then we have a level 1. So you have an example of a level 1 heading. I do not think you'll have more than level 1, level 2 headings, but you'll see that a level 1 heading is bolded, okay? You may have just use level 1 headings throughout. So if all I want to do is categorize it, and I have some of this explanation, like if you look at the actual text that's written in here, it's not, I have a little bit that's actually like a random paper, but if you look at some of the other text throughout here, it kind of gives an explanation that has to do specifically with your cat paper. So you want to make sure you read it, but it'll say, like your level 1 heading is like a title heading. So it does have your capitalization to it like any title would, okay? And it is bold. Does that make sense? So if I said,
I've never even seen them.
So it's not literally going to say level 1, it's going to say whatever
right.
your...
It's going to say whatever your
Like
title's
category.
going to say.
So
like 0 to
these
12.
different levels are just different kind of like paragraphs or sections?
They're different, yeah, if you want a section off,
Oh, okay.
okay?
I've never seen them before.
So what that would mean if I wanted to say, let's say I wanted to title something quantitative methodology. If that was going to be a section, that was going to be my first section there. It would go under my level, it would be a level 1 heading. So it would be bold, and it has what we call regular, like title capitalization, okay? So usually we call it like a title capitalization, meaning that all the important words are capitalized, but not a or in or of. Does that make sense? And then we have some things that are what we call sentence capitalization, where even though, and we'll see that on the reference page, so even though it is a title, we actually just use sentence capitalization where only the first word is capitalized. So it gets a little bit confusing, and that's why I just want to make sure we understand the specificity here. So you may only have level 1 headings. A lot of times papers only will have a level 1 heading, especially at this level, and that's fine. There's no issues with that. Sometimes we put in level 2 headings, and so those are the same format, they just start on the left-hand side. So instead of being centered, they start on the left-hand side, but otherwise they're still title structure, and they're still bolded. Now when we get down to a level 3, which I do not anticipate for this, that's where they start to get different. And it's indented and it's sentence structure, so it has that period there. So if I got down all the way to a level 3 heading, it changes, and if I was going to use quantitative methodology as a level 3 heading, it would be indented. I'm just gonna abbreviate, is that okay? It would say quantitative methodology with a sentence, and this would not be capitalized. I'm writing meth on the board, that's awesome. And then it would have a period there. Okay. Yes?
Does it have to be abbreviated?
No, it would not be abbreviated. I was just doing that to save
okay.
that was just me.
Okay.
So you would use the same title for like level 1, level 2, level 3?
No, you title however you want.
Okay.
So let's say, I think the for instance that I gave in there is for this paper is if you wanted to put just your NANDA. So you have to have a nursing diagnosis. Mm-hmm. So your level 1 headings, you may choose to write your NANDAs as your level 1. So your first one might say I'm just gonna pick random ones, okay? So it doesn't apply to anybody's paper. But let's say my first one was risk for falls. So that's my NANDA. So I would have to put risk for falls centered, okay, bolded, and it would be capital R for, and then capital F for falls, risk for falls. Then I could go down in the text under my level 1 heading and put my patient's priority 1 nursing diagnosis is risk for falls as evidenced by blah, 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 blah. Okay? Then underneath that risk for falls, I could choose, people choose to set these up a little differently, but one of the things you have to have are like obstacles. Okay? You might choose to have a level 2 heading that says obstacles to, or you might, probably would make more sense if you put community resources. So you might have that as a level 2 heading. And then you would talk about your community resources for that patient for risk for falls.
So
And then you might have another level 2 heading underneath that that says obstacles to community resources. Then you would write about that, and then you would start up another level 1 heading with your next NANDA. That's a possible way you can do that. Other people choose, you always want your community resources with your NANDA, with your nursing diagnosis, okay? But other people choose to put the obstacles kind of all together, because sometimes you might have the same obstacles, and so they might just have, towards the end, they might just put another level 1 heading, and it'd be obstacles in general and how to help the patient overcome those obstacles. So again, in this being a college level paper like this, there's things you have to include on it, and there's a rubric for it, but that does not, the rubric does not say that you have to have these specific headings. It just says you have to include these things in your paper. Okay.
So,
Did you guys get a copy of the paper? The copy of the rubric for the paper?
Just got this one's all. I was ready.
No rubric yet? Okay, I'll get those for you before you guys, are you guys able to stay the whole time, or do you have to go?
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, so I will print that off for you, because I send it over, but I'll print one off for you guys too.
so it's okay if like you have multiple level 2 like titles,
Yes.
like community resources, like
You can have, yes, you can set,
be
so,
titled the same. like,
yeah,
each
I'm,
section, or-
sure, yep, some people do that just to keep it consistent, that's fine. It just needs to be organized, so we're not telling you how it has to be organized, but it needs to be organized in some fashion, okay? So there's several different ways people set these up, and it's all fine. Okay. Now, was there another question about that? No, okay. So now the other thing that I have on here, besides just kind of the overall setting, and before I get to the reference page, which is super particular, is you'll see under title, there's a little introductory paragraph there, and then after that, I have this however. See that? So here under title, it starts with however. This is a random paragraph. I just pulled, it's not even really a cohesive paragraph, to be honest. I just pulled sentences that show different ways that you can cite. Okay, so it's different citations. So you'll see there, I tried to put in the first citation starts with Faget, and I was trying to show you what to do when you have multiple authors. And then I was trying to show you what to do if you have multiple articles that are telling you some of the same information. So how would you list, so that shows how to list multiple articles with the semicolon there. That's saying that there's at least 2 different articles. I'm looking at them upside down. So I have 3 different articles there. So the first article has 5 authors. The second article has 2 authors, and the last one has 1 author. Okay. Do you notice there's no initials? Just last names. Okay? So please, those are the types of things you want to take note of. We use the ampersand. when we're using a citation, it is the ampersand if it's in parentheses. So a parenthetical citation uses the ampersand. Okay. Now, if you see the next sentence, so then I tried to pull a sentence where it was actually in text citation. So the next sentence says, Simon, McGinnis, and Cross, and because it's in part of the sentence and not just in the parentheses, because it's part of the sentence, I use the actual and. And then I put the year in parentheses after that. And then we talk about it. Okay. Notice that every sentence that I pulled that isn't my own thought has to have its citation, okay? So you can't, even if you're pulling 2 or 3 sentences from the same, shouldn't say that. You're not allowed to pull multiple sentences. You can only have 2 quotes from the whole thing. We actually, the less quotes you have, the better. If you have 0 quotes, that's best. But sometimes you do have to quote something just because you can't reword, like a definition. If somebody was defining something, a concept, or, you really have to. Even at the doctoral level, you have to occasionally quote somebody. It is always better to paraphrase. But every sentence that you paraphrase or idea that you paraphrase should be cited. Okay, so it's sentence by sentence. So keep that in mind. So there's that one. And then I have another example of one at the end. And then I used the Simon. So if they have multiple authors, more than 2, if you use that author again, or that article, I'm sorry, I misspoke there. So do you see where we used Simon in the second sentence? Simon, McGinnis, and Cross? Mm-hmm. If I use that article again, that exact article again, the second time I write it, I can use the et al. So you see the very last citation in that paragraph? Okay, that's the Simon et al. And that's exactly how that is written. So it's the first author, space et, space al, those are lowercase, period, comma, and then the year.
Now you would only write it like that if it's in the parentheses, correct? Like you can't, like
You
if
can
you
write it like that if it's in the sentence also.
Okay.
Yes, that was a good question, yes. Okay, but it's only after it's already been fully written out once. There are some very specific times when you don't have to, and that's usually 6 or more authors. So those are the types of things that you might have to look up some, because there's not probably going to be tons of articles that are like that, but you do have a few here and there where if there's 6 or more authors. The other thing is if you did, just to point out, like in that first set and in the second set, where there's multiple articles being listed, they're alphabetized. Do you see that? Each section is, or each article is alphabetized by the first author's last name. So Benner goes first, then, right, Benner's on this, yeah. Benner goes first, then Schooley, then Simon.
and that's exactly how it's listed on the paper article you're getting it from. Not you can't rearrange the names on.
You can't rearrange their names. So do you understand that the semicolon is differentiating articles?
Mhm.
Okay? But no, first author, that's like a big deal.
Okay.
You want to be, you're writing and you're getting published, being first authors,
Okay.
that's it's first name that goes, for
Okay.
everything, so. Someday maybe, right? What's that?
That's what you reference in your nursing class. Key and.
Benner, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You guys have all referenced Benner, right? You guys have seen that name? First day of nursing school, second day. Benner was Benner is novice to expert. Table on novice to expert.
Oh.
Yeah, that's Benner.
Wow.
Yeah, okay.
That's right.
Side note, so now if you go to page 5 here, and we actually take a peek at this reference page. This is usually where I see very creative things that way. We don't want you to be creative. We want you to stick directly to exactly what you're supposed to do here, okay? It is alphabetized. It is double spaced. Okay. You have last name, comma, initials. So if the person just has one initial, then it would go initial, period, then comma. Sometimes our authors, if you look at the Faget, Chen, Baran, so the next line, you see the next one? Baran has 2 initials, so if they list their first name and their middle name, then you have to include both initials. That's how that person wants to be referenced, okay? So you put them all in order, you use your ampersand. There is a period after the last initial, and then your parentheses year, and then there's another period there. So periods are kind of like our way to say we're starting something new in our references. Then we have the title. So the title of, in this case, it's a book. So this first one is the book, and I know it's a book because it is italicized, and then it has a publisher. So a book's gonna have an italicized title, but we're using sentence structure for that. You see that? So even though it's a title, nurses is not capitalized, call is not capitalized. The only thing we capitalize is the first word, and then if there is a colon in there, it would be the first word after the colon is capitalized as well. At the end of the title, it's the period, and then the place and the publisher.
You don't capitalize it even if it's capitalized like on the book?
Correct. Correct. The only one that kind of gets a little, and it doesn't happen that often, is if it is a proper noun. Then you usually do have to capitalize that, like if it was a name or a place. So if I was looking at NCLEX, predictions of NCLEX pass rates in Michigan, I would end up having to capitalize because like NCLEX is always capitalized and Michigan's always capitalized, so I wouldn't make those lowercase, but anything else. Okay. Now if you look at the next one, the rest of these 4 are all journals, which is primarily what you guys are going to be citing, or journal articles. So you can see the authors are set up in the same format, date, but then when we get to the title of the article, it's not italicized, it's just written in sentence structure, okay? When you get down to innovative higher education, that is italicized, that is the name of the journal. Then it will go, and this one, the Faget is not the best example. If you go down to the Giddens, the Journal of Nursing Excellence, you see that? That's the journal. So if you go down to the next one, you see the 55? That is, oh, and I can never, I have to look at an actual article. There's the volume and the issue. And they will write it, it's always in the same order. It's always, I think, volume first and then issue. So the volume is italicized. So you'd have to write the volume. So you have to, so I always stop my cursor here and go backwards and italicize the volume and the journal title, but you leave the parenthesis and the issue is not. Okay? If somebody asks me why, I don't know. It's just what we do. I don't know.
Now, why is the name of the journal capitalized but not in the name of the book?
Because that's how APA says.
Okay.
This is not one of those things where you have to know your rationale for everything or you don't do it. This is the format that has been decided on. So that's why we do it that way. Take it up with the American Psychological Association.
I did that in my schedule.
So it's not italic on here, but is it, or?
Yeah, it is. The 55 is italic.
Oh, okay.
Just can't tell.
Okay, and then it's a comma, and then it's your page numbers, and then a period. And then we want the DOI. Okay? The DOI is what you want. So you should be able to find anything that's newer, you should have a DOI. So you guys, for your articles, because they have to be less than 5 years old, you should have a DOI. The thing that is going to tick you off, it ticks me off every single time I was adding stuff to my dissertation last night, and I was getting ticky with it. DOI will automatically capitalize. So every time I write DOI, I have to go back and uncapitalize it because it's right after a period. So it will automatically capitalize it. You have to go back and lowercase it. Decapitalize it, I don't know. Lowercase it. And then you type exactly whatever ridiculous DOI number, letters that they put there. You type that all out, okay? It's cumbersome, but you'll get there.
So you say, like 55 and 4, is that volume and issue? Is that?
Mm-hmm. So this is volume, goes volume issue.
Volume issue.
Yeah. I'm like 99% sure because it's always the same order. So I never pay attention to which one's which because it's always, if there's only one, it's the italicized one, and if there's two, you can just put it in the same order. So I'm pretty sure it's volume issue though. I even made a mental note to pay attention yesterday when I was actually like putting a whole bunch in, and I still can't 100% remember what it was. The only other thing I would say is if there is no DOI, which there should be, but if there is not, this gets to be probably the most confusing. I do have an example of one on there. But what you have to do is you put retrieved from, okay? And then you have to find the website. It's not hard to do. It's not hard to do. But you have to find the website of the journal, okay? So the easiest way to do that is you want to make sure that your article has a DOI while you're looking it up. If it does not have a DOI, go into the, like where it has the abstract or just the information about it. You know what I'm talking about? When you're looking at an article or just where it has the information about the article, it'll give the website for that journal. Or it'll say from this journal and it'll have a hyperlink. If you click on the hyperlink, it'll take you to that journal's website. Then all you do is you just take, it's usually a cleaner, like this one, the example I gave you is not a very clean HTTP. It's not a nice one, but a lot of times it'll be as simple as Journal of Nursing Excellence. It'll be like www.journalofnursingexcellence.com or .org or whatever. So you want that nice clean one. What you don't want is the big, huge, long one that's going to show up at the top of the page. You want the nice clean one that would get people to where they need to go. It may not take them directly to that article, but it'll take them to a place where they can access the article. Yes?
Is DOI the same as a permalink?
No, I don't think so. This is the, I think it stands for Document Object Identifier or something. It's something similar to that. Right. Yeah, they have to have, for APA it is the DOI number or the journal.
I think when you do the site, if you use the library, if you cite it, it'll have it in there.
The DOI?
Yeah.
Yes, it should. There are a few articles, it's usually more the articles that are older, they don't actually have the DOI. that's where,
You probably have the website on there too, like if you had,
Yes.
you went back and like click, cause there's a button that you can like cite.
yes.
Or, yeah.
But you only need
One of them.
one or the other, and we prefer the DOI number. That's where everything, so as you move on, that's, right now at least, that's where everybody is going, is with the DOI number. So really pretty, I mean, that's the basics of the APA. It honestly is all about following these formats to the T. There is, you can't be creative with what you're capitalizing and not capitalizing. You cannot just, at the library, just create the APA and expect it to be right. It's not gonna be right. You have to have the hanging indents. So if you look at the reference page, you see how these are what we call hanging indents. So you have to go change your setting. So it's not in paragraph format, but it's in a hanging indent. But those are the types of things that you have to, you know, really pay attention to.
If you push tab, will that do the same thing in the second line?
I wouldn't, it's gonna screw everything up, and then if you add anything to it, it's gonna undo, you wanna just change, it's very quick.
I've never done it.
Yeah, if we need help
Do you
with
wanna-
figuring out how to do it, where do we?
I can help you.
I can pull some stuff up here.
'Cause I
know, I know.
I've always just hit tab because I never knew how.
No,
Cause I didn't know how to do it either.
I know how to do it, I'll show you.
Ruler thing at the top, I think.
Yeah. This,
No,
it's
it's
a
even
settings.
easier than that.
Will it just do
I
that
just
one page?
It'd be easier if I knew what the setting, like if I could just.
Yes.
It won't change the whole paper. That would be bad.
That'd be so much.
Did you want
easier.
that example paper, kind of? And then I need to give, the writing fellows, I need to give them, a copy of the rubric and everything. Okay. So I'll give them that.
Nicole, I have a question for you.
I wasn't sure if you gave them, since I send the rubric over, no, okay, just raise your hand.
Outside of referencing the date of the reference material on here, there's no other way to know how old a paper is there? They don't put a
The
date
article?
on. No, like the actual APA paper. Like you're looking at one, you don't know how old or when it was actually written outside of referencing looking at the references, how old they are.
Right, with APA, you don't necessarily have to have a date.
Mhm.
Right. Yep. It's still thinking. What other questions? Do you guys have any other questions? Yeah, sure.
Actually, yeah, so is there a mandatory of 5 sources on this paper then? Is
Yes.
there? And then if you add.
There's a mandatory 5 research articles.
Okay.
And so it's in there, can I see that?
Yeah.
And I'll bring some, I'll give you guys some here. But the students all have this, and we went over it briefly, but it kind of gives overall directions. Now, it does include directions for,
So are we allowed
they have
to
a
paraphrase
project too that they do with
You
these.
just
Yeah.
can't quote.
But this is what the
More than
rubric
2
looks
times?
like, that spells out
no more than 2 direct quotes.
expectations.
But I can handle it if, like, say I have a paraphrase sentence and then I
Yeah.
have my citation.
Yep.
And then say the next sentence is
5 years, is that correct?
Paraphrase another
Paraphrase
citation.
We-
another
correct.
citation.
My understanding of that sounds
So
right.
this is good for you guys to know too. So can you have more than 5 resources? Yes, you have to have 5 current, less than 5 years old, research articles. Could you end up with a couple books on here? Sure. Could you end up with a couple articles that really make your point but that are older? Sure. There's no points given or taken away for that, but the points are associated with those 5. So you can have more in addition to that, but you must meet the criteria of those 5. Or there's points, you can see that there's point deduction associated with not having them, those 5. Research articles, peer-reviewed, scholarly, it's very specific. So we try to make this extremely explicit so that there aren't any surprises about what you're being graded on, what the expectations are for the paper. You guys can chat if you want. Wait on me, it's gonna be a minute.